Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. CARPHA member states received high praise for their response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 22nd July 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Caribbean countries under the Caribbean Public Health Agency CARPHA get high praise for the COVID-19 response from the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC in Atlanta. More in this Barbados Today report.
The CDC is of the view that countries in this region outperform others that have more resources. Alicia Boucher of TV6 News has the story.
According to team lead of the CDC's Emergency Response and Recovery Branch, Professor Richard Garfield, that was evident during the COVID-19 pandemic in relation to many large first world countries. Dr. Garfield says the opposite is true when it comes to CARPHA member states.
I think in CARPHA countries, some of the better actions were taken, using resources in a more effective fashion. More generally, a lot of economically advanced countries have many capacities on paper or have the facilities to do things that they don't necessarily use effectively.
The CDC team lead says the Caribbean region was able to do a good job at identifying limitations faced by individual countries and was able to coordinate to maximize limited resources.
I think the strategies and plans that you've had in the past have stood out as being more practical than those from many other regions of the world that we work with from CDC. Your surveillance strategy and your regional strategies from prior to COVID are excellent resources now to look at as you're planning for the future.
The professor states that around 70 countries have a 5-year national action plan pertaining to health security, with the World Health Organization identifying these plans as critical to moving forward.
But many of those plans are not functional plans. To date, many of them are what we would have to call aspirational. And that doesn't innovate action and make a change. You need your goals, and you have goals. So it's good time now to look back at those goals and see how they functioned during COVID and how COVID informs the revision of goals for a 5-year period.
In another Barbados Today report, the U.S. says Barbados does not meet the minimum standards for elimination of trafficking in persons, but it's making significant efforts to do so.
According to Washington's 2022 Trafficking in Persons report, in which Barbados gets a rating of Tier 2. The report said the upgrade was based on government's increasing efforts to tackle the problem when compared with the previous reporting periods, taking into consideration the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on its anti-trafficking capacity. It highlighted that local authorities increased investigations, initiating 2 prosecutions for the first time since 2013, and identified a victim for the first time since 2016. The report, however, expressed concern that the government has never secured a trafficking conviction under the Trafficking in Persons Prevention Act.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's Credit Bureau will be rolled out in December this year. This will mean a credit score is to be assigned to each person seeking a loan in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, an arrangement being used elsewhere in the region and the world. ABS News has more.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank's Credit Bureau is promised to make lending and borrowing easier within the sub-region. A major feature will be the analysis of data, which will assign a credit score to all prospective loan seekers. This will alert lending agencies, banks and credit unions, for example, if you make a good candidate for a loan. Van Ryder of Credit Info ETCB Limited explains how it will work.
It takes all of the information from the report, so the subject data, the past inquiries, contracts, collaterals, etc., runs it through a scoring engine, and then calculates the probability of default based on analytics included. So it'll say, for an example, the classification is from an E3 on the left, which is a very low score and a very high risk, or classified all the way to a very low risk, which is a very high score, and that's where you really want to be.
Ryder further explains that lending agencies may use the score as part of their risk analysis.
Or they may say that any borrower that has a credit score of E1, E2, or E3, which is extremely high risk and has a probability of default in excess of 50%, is a straight decline.
The report will use lenders' information from the last 7 years to compare the credit score, and Riders offers assistance on how you may improve your score.
You need to consistently and on time make payments of your credit obligations, have a long and diverse credit history, maintain low to medium credit balances, limit the number of loans during a given period, check your credit profile annually, at least, dispute any incorrect information, and then take ownership and manage your own profile responsibly.
Conversely, if you maintain a high credit balance and often make late payments, your score will be negatively impacted. The system, which forms part of the ECCB's Credit Bureau, will be launched officially in December this year. For ABS News, I'm Ursil Charles Jr.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister said earlier this week that during the Cabinet's 2-day retreat late last week, a lot of time was spent examining the Trinidad and Tobago economy. In TV6's Inside Business, a closer look at the Prime Minister's explanation of the government's management of the national deficit and inflation during the COVID-19 pandemic is shared by Jewel Brown of TV6 News.
The Prime Minister said during the Cabinet's recent 2-day retreat, it received a presentation from the Finance Minister as Dr. Rowley spoke of his administration's first term in office from 2015 to 2020 and its second term in office, which began when it won the 2020 general election.
This is where we started out as a government. This government, the previous administration of this government, we started out here. And our responsibility as a new government was to get this turned around, stabilize the country's economy, and get this calamitous pitfall that you saw here. 2015 September here, and these curves going up here were telling us going in the right direction, climbing out of this trough.
The Prime Minister said in 2018, Trinidad and Tobago's deficit was $5.7 billion.
2019, 4.3 billion. And the projection for the next year was about 3 billion, and we were moving towards a balance in our budget. Up comes COVID, and our deficit jumped from 4 billion to 16 billion.
The Prime Minister said the government then had to make significant borrowings.
2021, 13.4 billion, and projected for 2022, 3 billion. So it's a nice curve here to have climbed down from the deficit of 16 billion to just under 4 billion. But remember, that deficit is not money in hand. It is the difference between earnings and expenditure. Our earnings have improved considerably in the 2022 period, end of 2021, 2022, and that is why our deficit is going to be better.
The Prime Minister then spoke about the levels of inflation during the COVID pandemic.
Our inflation was approaching 1% at one stage. It was 2 and 3%, which was very good for a developing country in the kind of crises that we were in. Of course, I don't expect our detractors to say so, but we will say so ourselves. It was a very good job in maintaining inflation at that level going forward and aiming towards a balancing of the budget. External circumstances, including a pandemic and other things, came and disrupted that direction, and we'll talk about that on August 2nd. But the bottom line is, even now, the levels of inflation in Trinidad and Tobago is considerably less than it is in other countries which are in fact facing the same kinds of challenges that we are facing.
I'm Joel Brown with tonight's Inside Business.
Head of Trinidad and Tobago's Police Complaints Authority, David West, meantime seeks to assure the public that the authority is independent and not here to make friends. This as he shares some insight into the PCA's role in the arrest of 8 police officers involved in a triple murder in Morvan in 2020. More from TV6's Nicole M. Ramani.
PCA Director David West tells TV6 that following the police-involved 2020 Morvan triple murder, the PCA conducted its own probe into the community. He says they were not influenced by anyone. The incident occurred on the 27th of June in 2020, where officers on an exercise at 2nd Caledonia Road, Morvan, stopped a vehicle with 3 male occupants, Joel Jacob, Israel Clinton, and Neil Diamond. According to police, one of the men pointed a firearm and they responded in kind. The men died at the scene. Today, Mr. West tells TV6 that a thorough investigation was conducted into the matter.
It was a very, upheaving event that we saw take place on the CCTV footage. So what we would have done is that when the police-involved shooting took place, we would have gone to the area and we would have canvassed the area, and our investigators would have looked for example, for evidence like CCTV footage nearby so that we can use. We would have also looked at the interviewed prospective witnesses to see what they saw, and they would have come forward and they would have given evidence and statements to us. Most crucially, of course, that they would have given statements to the PCA, I think, before that they gave to the police.
Mr. West maintains that the PCA is an independent civilian oversight body.
See, what we have done in the Morvan shooting, in the Nella Grave shooting, in the Masjid matter, in the PC Jilks matter, the PCA is getting, the confidence is building in Trinidad and Tobago. We are now a household name, PC Fazil. I think when I first started, people said, "What, PC what?" But now we are a household name, and we are an institution where you can get justice, and it is an independent, confidential institution where you can make your complaint.
He says the PCA is focused on its mandate for justice.
And I'm not here to make friends, right? I'm here to do a job. I'm here to make sure that at the end, justice is done via independent evidence with no kind of bias at all attached.
The 8 police officers were charged with murder and appeared in court on Tuesday. They have all been remanded. Nicole M. Romney, TV6 News.
Conveniently located in the Grandand Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grandhands will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.